right, welcome to the Faith and Life podcast. And this is Mike Weaver, pastor at St. Luke. And with me, as always,
Greg
is,
Osborne, the student pastor here at St. Luke. So,
and here we are again, now fully into the month of June, a weekend. And before we started this podcast, Greg and I were chit-chatting about life, and he said you were cleaning out gutters.
yeah,
What's your
the
mind?
fun things.
Yeah,
It's like back when I was, first started out as a just out of college single guy at St. Luke. It was like my days off would be like go to the movies, play video games, read a book, sit by the pool. Now my day off is I clean my gutters.
yeah.
Cool.
Welcome to home ownership. Exactly. Well, and that reminds me of the question I want to start us off with. And today we're going to talk about the 35th anniversary of St. Luke. We're celebrating that this summer at St. Luke. And so we'll get to that in a second. But here's the question that I thought about before our meeting today, and it highlights the importance of this question even more since you cleaned out gutters.
Yeah.
What is the chore you enjoy doing?
Ooh.
I mean, gutters maybe gutters are it. I don't know.
Oh. Uh, that's a good question. I,
I'll let you think. I
Go
have one.
for it.
So for me, it's mowing the grass. I don't, well, I enjoy might be a strong word. I enjoy having done it and you go, oh, look at that. The grass looks great.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, I don't mind doing it because it kind of like a mindless, just kind of get in a rhythm and just go. Um, so I like doing that. Yeah.
The after result is great. Like where you're like,
Yes.
does it? I'll do it sometimes. From like, does the grass really need to be mowed? Like it's fine. And then once I'm mowed, I'm like, man, it looks so good.
Yeah.
Like it looks so good. So for me, it's kind of just like straightening up, organizing. Like it sounds weird, but like wiping down counters, sweeping the floor, like putting stuff away because it's for me, that's kind of just like I don't know if I again love doing it, but I don't mind doing it. The end result too for me is I hate I hate mess. I hate junk. So like I like my house to be clean. And so to my kids' detriment, sometimes I'm like, y'all gotta go clean your toy room because it's gonna drive me insane.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's very much like I always like my mindset with Stacy, and I kind of like she kind of realized this early on is like I like the house to be like 30 minutes guest friendly. And like so like if that was like if you text me like, hey, we're coming over in 30 minutes to have some dinner, I'm like, cool. It shouldn't take me longer than 30 minutes to have the house look presentable.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at. And so like if it gets to a stage where I go, oh, we're not there, it it drives me bonkers. And that's just how I've always been when it's been my house, my place. Now, if you look at our office in the church, it's completely different, but that's another story.
So let me ask you this. What's 10-minute guest presentable?
Ooh, 10-minute guest presentable. I mean, it is just put the dishes that are in the sink in the dishwasher, and like that's we're and then maybe give a quick wipe down of the bathroom stuff
Yeah,
and
it's a
maybe
flurry.
maybe sweep. It's like it's pretty and so like we it's just the way it is. Like and I've said it on the podcast like we're going into a deep clean mode because we're going on the family camp next week and so like I'm very much of the I want the house spotless before we leave for vacation. So when we come home from vacation, that's not something I have to stress about and it's just like
Yeah.
all right. So we're in
Okay.
that we're in that zone, baby. That's why the gutters are getting clean. That's like I want to get the stuff done off my list so when I come home from vacation, I don't have to go, oh, I've got to do 80,000 other things. I can be like, no, I enjoyed the vacation. I enjoyed my time at home doing what I need to do, like work and be with the kids. So that's
Nice.
yeah, that's what
That's
it
pretty
is.
good. Yeah. And your girls are, Dad, we gotta clean our rooms before we go.
See, I don't mind I honestly I don't bother them about their bedrooms because that is their space. It's they can close the door and it
Yeah.
really is like it's up to them. It's where people are on the first floor. That's where I'm like I want it clean. But like for them if they want their room mess, I really very ever tell them like clean your room. So that's
Yeah. Wow.
that's That's them.
That's great. That's great. So in July 1991, St. Luke became in existence as far as like on this property.
Yeah.
Um, there's a history that maybe we'll get to later this summer. But for the sake of our conversation today, July 1991 is when St. Luke started,
Yeah.
right? It was a combination of two different Lutheran churches, which we'll get to in other podcasts this summer. But um, yeah, and Tim Eisinghausen was the pastor in 1991, and he was here for nearly 10 years,
Yeah. Till
all
like
through the
90,
90s.
till
Then
99. Yeah.
then Steve Brown came on, and then me as the three lead pastors of this church.
Yeah.
35 years. That's a pretty good deal. Three three main pastors over 35 years says a lot about a congregation.
Hmm.
Not a lot of turnover as far as leadership goes. That stability says a lot. So, and Greg, you've been here much longer than I have, and you have history with St. Luke. You have your own history with St. Luke.
Yeah.
So today, let's just talk a little bit about how what we've experienced over the time we've had been here. And by the way, later on this summer, we'll have Tim Eisinghausen, the former pastor we just mentioned. He's going to be on the podcast in July. We still need to coordinate with Steve Brown, so he'll be with us. But they're both preaching this summer.
Yeah.
And actually, Tim, just a week from Sunday, he'll be preaching
On Father's Day.
on Father's Day. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
Steve, August. So really excited about having them on the podcast, have them preach with us, and having them back in worship with us. Really a great opportunity to be together. So that's what's upcoming as we celebrate 35 years. But what about you? How long have you been here? What's been your experience at St. Luke?
So I have been at St. Luke. This is actually the start of my 20th year in ministry at St. Luke. So
Man,
I
talk about
came,
longevity. That's longevity right there.
yeah, I came in May of '07, fresh out of college, and I haven't looked back since. So yeah, so this is the start of my 20th year. So next year I'll have officially been here for 20 years in May.
Wow.
So
It's amazing. And so 20 years ago, how was St. Luke different 20 years ago than today?
oh,
Yeah.
so so different, but not in bad ways either. But there were, I mean, it was just a different time of era that we were in, right? Like I remember when I got the when I was looking into St. Luke, like when it was approached, like, hey, are you interested in a youth pastor job? Like, we come out for interviews and things like here. I remember looking at the church website, and I was like, I don't know if this church is going to be for me. It was really dated at the time, and this is 20 years ago, so dated at that time was even more dated. It had like a, it had like this GIF on it where it was like a little church with like just like rainbow coming out or like a dove flying out or something like, and it was
Oh
just like
yeah.
one of those like nonstop motion GIFs.
Oh, it moved and
Yeah,
everything.
but it was the
Oh,
same thing. It was the same image that just kept repeating. It was just like I was like, oh man, and like it wasn't the best. And so I was like, oh man, am I gonna fit in as this young like
yeah.
techie person? And so it was just like so like there was just those stylized differences there, but like it was interesting to see kind of just like the growth because by the time I got there, the contemporary space had been built a couple years before that. The sanctuary was pretty much the same as it is now. We've remodeled it since I've been here and things like that. So like St. Luke had been established and Steve had been there for 7 years at the time. So basically it was like your length of time. So there was this kind of going into like what I felt was like, okay, there's going to be some security here of like the pastor's been there for a while. There's some movement, excitement, and things. I was actually the first full time youth pastor that St. Luke had hired at that time. So they had Jake Lehman and Teeny kind of coded my job together at points, and Jake was an intern as like a intern pastor kind of in training and Teeny was doing the uh secretary stuff, the parish administrator stuff up front, kind of helping with that too, alongside with Carol at the time. And Yeah, so like yeah, Carol was in the office at the time when I got there, Madel, and it was and helping out in that with that as well. And so it was just like I kind of got to come into St. Luke in my own of they never really had a student ministry, like an official student ministry position paid full time. And so it was kind of like it was a blank canvas to kind of just figure out what I wanted to do of mistakes I made in those years of trying to figure out how to do student ministry, and and kind of just figuring out what it would look like for St. Luke and stuff. So I kind of got to just come in from the get-go, and I didn't have this like lingering thing of like, oh well, so and so used to do it like this, and so it was a nice experience for someone young like me coming into it, going, all right, here we go. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. So you definitely weren't coming because of the website.
No.
You're coming here because of the opportunity and the opportunity for ministry,
Yeah.
but also you had a connection with Steve as well.
Yeah, so I actually worked with his oldest son, Nate, at Camp Moana. And that was one of the Lutheran camps that has now since closed down. But we worked for my first summer, so that would have been like '04. And I got to know Steve like when he come up for like parents weekend, and then I was good friends with Nate, so we kept in touch. You know, I went to I went to Chicago the next summer to visit him, and over Fourth of July weekend, and his family was all in town. So like I kind of got to know, and it was weird because it was like that I'm meeting who would eventually be my boss and someone close in my life for
Yeah.
very on, but it was like that kind of was one of those like distance relationships, like, oh, I know of you. Like, yeah, that's cool for like 3 years before. And then it was sometime I think in like February of '07 or January, sometime like right around that time, St. Luke had restarted their youth pastor search, student pastor search, because they kind of had put it on hold for a while. And Nate called me up and was like, "Hey, are you still, going to do youth ministry stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah, like that's what I'm. That's why I got my degree in. That's I'm like I've got like 5 churches I've got some applications at and resumes and things at." And he goes, "Well, my dad's church is looking for one." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I was like, so I threw my name into the ring, and they called me up and said, "Hey, can you come and do a an interview on Sunday this one time?" And I told them no. It was Super Bowl Sunday. I was like, I can't come Super, and it wasn't just because of the Super Bowl. In my defense, I was interning at a youth group at that time, and that was our thing. Like we had a Super Bowl party that had like hundreds of kids go to it. So I was just like, I can't do that. So like, all right, we can do the next weekend. And got to know people, and not very many that were on my call committee, on the call committee for me, are still around. But it was interesting to kind of see that process from kind of going into that side and to now when I've been on and on the other side with doing call committee stuff. So it was interesting. But yeah, so they called and I was like, all right, yeah, I'm in. And they
Wow.
offered the job. I think when I was actually like in spring break, I was like, yeah, I think this is the spot for me. I did not think I was going to come back to Columbus, Ohio, and I did not know if I'd be here for 20 years, but here we are.
No kidding. Man, oh man. I mean, what has 20 years allowed you to do? I mean, that's a long time to be in one
Yeah.
place. What's the benefit of being here for 20 years for you?
I, I think it's a relationship, and I think it's a trust with people. For me as someone, I've, 20 years in ministry, I've made mistakes. I haven't handled situations well. I've dropped the ball on things. I'm not like, and you very easily could be like, yes, it's cool. Let's move on. We're going to somewhere else. And there's been times where I'm like, man, is it the grass is greener on the other side? But what it allows me to do, I think, is I start to build these relationships with people and to get to know, they get to know who I am. They get to know that, what I'm about. And I think that's the reality of like, even if we have disagreements or like maybe I don't do a program the way that someone wants to, I think like there's at least a little bit that's now shown that like I can talk to Greg and figure out like, hey, is this because there's that trust. There's that, hey, I'm invested in it for you. And I think then it starts to change because like there's, when you come into it, it's interesting to see like relationships with church members who are still here since I've been here since '07. And when I came in, I was 21. And to
Wow.
be like, this 21-year-old kid who thought he knew everything and but there's a you can see the change in relationship with people too that are like, oh, you actually like you're not a kid anymore, and you bring value, and going to do hospital visits to people that might not even be like, I was doing that before you came, before we had an associate pastor. I was kind of splitting that with Steve, so getting to kind of know the people that were outside the student ministry allowed me to kind of just build relationships with people that don't have a connection to student ministry too, because of just my longevity there. That like I've gotten phone calls of like that have never had a kid in my program from someone who was like, hey, I need a ride from the hospital. Can you pick me up? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like, and I think that those moments happen when you have that longevity, when you have that people know that you're going to be there for them in some capacity. So that's kind of what it's allowed me to do. It's allowed me to make mistakes and have grace with that, but it's allowed me to then invest in people and have relationships. I think that you sometimes miss out on, especially in student ministries, with the turnover rate. We talked about, we had what, three head pastors here for 35 years, which is great. The average span for a youth pastor is 2 years still in ministry at a
Wow.
church. So I think you miss out on those relationships and connections, because I think like that 2 year mark is right when you're really starting to get to know people, but it's also right at that moment where I say the Midas touch starts to fade away, right? Like
Yeah.
when you're new into I don't know if this was like it for you because you kind of came in to replace somebody, but like when you come in and they haven't had anything that first year, anything you do is gold, right? Like
Yeah.
anything you're like, oh, I started this, it's great. Then it's like after year two, it's like, you know what? Like, is this really the best thing? And
Right.
that's where I
Yeah.
think that's why you get that tendency sometimes of, youth
Hmm.
pastors, especially being younger, when we come into the roles more often than not, it's that easy to say, okay, cool, I'm gonna go this route. So, yeah.
Yeah. Though that's amazing. It's the value of um the not flashy parts of human relationships,
Mhm.
consistency, commitment, faithfulness. You know, they are just foundational things that over 20 years you develop all those things with
Yeah.
people. And it's like this, it's a foundation for everything else. In 2 years, it's hard to create those. It
Yeah.
can be done over 2 years,
Yeah.
but really it's just the beginning of creating those things with folks. But after a while, people start then to develop trust and develop dependability and credibility because of those foundational relational things. Like I'm going to be here, all those things that you talked about. So good for you. 20 years. And hey, you went from being a single guy to married. Now you got kids and
Yeah. Like that's been the craziest aspect of like, I mean, there's a good portion of St. Luke that have watched me like grow up in my life of, I mean, I've almost been here half my life. If you
yeah.
really think about it, I came when I was 21 and now I'm 40. Like,
Wow. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so to see like people got to be involved with seeing like me have Stacy, we were dating, and then when we got engaged, and now all that happened within a span of a year. So it was really quick time, but like it was, and then to see my kids and to start to see my kids grow up into the programs and things like that. Yeah, it was interesting because I think, what did I say the other day? I said something to, well, I think I was talking to you. We were in our meeting. I was like, oh, the next time we do such and such, I was like, my kids will be in my class.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
forget what it was. I was like, oh,
Confirmation, I think.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh
When your
my
daughter gets to
goodness.
be middle school, which is only a few years away, a
Yeah.
couple years away.
Yeah.
So
So it's been interesting to see that for, but
that's all awesome. Hey, so I've been here 7 years. I mean, I got here right before the pandemic, the year before in 2019. Um, Called to be an associate pastor here. Uh, so it's interesting over 7 years. I got April of 2019. So we had a year of being all together. And then March of 2020, everything shut down.
yo,
Then, we were shut down for a while. We all experienced that. Um, but this is one of the most challenging and interesting 7 years professionally I've ever had because, I went from 1 year associate pastor just trying to figure out what is ministry like here at St. Luke, what's it like to be with Steve and the staff and so on and so forth. Well, I know Steve prior to being on staff here. Um, but just kind of figuring it all out, getting to know people, and then all of a sudden, nope, we're shutting everything down. Okay, that really puts a kibosh on lots of things. And then we come out of that, and Steve's like, I'm going to retire. So now we've got adjust. We got another adjustment in 2022, and then Aaron McCullough goes, "Well, I'm going to be taking a job in Iowa." Oh, we got another adjustment we got to deal with
A month after Steve leaves.
after Steve leaves, and then we're like, "Okay, now I'm the interim senior pastor." And then we brought Chris on as she's still a contract associate pastor.
Yeah.
But for the last 4 years, I went from then the interim senior pastor, then to the called senior pastor, which might not it might not seem like a lot, but it is a lot. It feels different, and the weight is different. It's a different type of weight. Interim senior pastor, we just needed to kind of figure things out, like what's
Right.
it look like after Steve. Called senior pastor is like, okay, now we've got a future ahead of us that's more solid because the interim piece of it is a little more temporary. Um,
It's almost like you're just keeping the boat afloat in the
yeah,
interim stuff, and people are okay with that
yep,
because they know you're an interim.
yep,
Uh,
exactly, exactly. And then now the call, when you get the call, like you get voted in as the
yeah.
call lead pastor. And now we're like, okay, the boat's just not like floating anymore. We have now a direction. And that direction is exciting, but also has a lot of weight to it, right? There's a lot of things that go with that. So it's been really challenging because there's been there's been one, two, three, four shifts in 7 years for me.
Yeah.
Associate pastor, COVID, interim senior pastor, now lead pastor. Um, and I had been a solo pastor before this years ago, I'd not been a lead pastor of a church this size ever. So there's a learning curve with that.
Yeah.
So um, I'm so grateful that people are patient with me and helping me walk with patiently with as I learn the ropes of being lead pastor. I do come, obviously, I came with a wealth of experience. I've been a pastor for a long time, 20 years before I came on board here. So I knew how to be a pastor. It's just
Right.
like, how do you lead in this realm? So it's been both lots of challenge, lots of excitement, some joys, some struggles, but not for the faint of heart. And but it's been a good journey. But St. Luke has changed over from
Yeah.
2019 to 2026. COVID really changed us. It really
Mhm.
it did a number, not just for St. Luke, but almost every congregation
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for
changed
sure.
it. So um, not just numbers, it just feels different than it did in 2019. The world feels different too.
Hmm.
So, uh, but what has maintained has been St. Luke is very relational,
Yeah.
very strong with developing relationships. And I think that helps with the longevity with yourself, with the other pastors who have been here, and just people in general who have stuck around.
Mhm.
And that has been such a gift as a pastor to be part of a church that is so strong in relationships and valued in relationships and the commitment to them.
Yeah.
What a gift. What a good
I
thing.
and I think it's and that has been a staple. Hospitality has been a staple of who St. Luke is since when I like before I got here. Like my first summer, I remember one of the best things Steve ever did for me. He made an announcement at the church. He's like, "Hey, we have a new youth pastor here. He's single, doesn't know anybody." He goes, "Invite him over for dinner." Invite him over. He goes, he should not be cooking meals all summer long. Like, invite him over. And I'll tell you what, man, St. Luke came out and I went to so many people's houses. I
Wow.
like the Maxwell's making me strumble. Like, I can still remember certain households that had certain dishes that I was like, and people that just were like to just get to know the families and in the congregation. And it was just like, it was the coolest thing for me to just get to dine with the congregation. And they opened up their house to me. And it kind of just said, I'm like, wow, I've never had this type of experience before. And I got to go to met so many people. A lot of them obviously were tied with student ministry because they wanted to know the news, student pastor and get to have the kids meet. But it was one of the best things for me that the church just showed up and we're like, yeah, we'll invite you over all the time. So, um,
Yeah, that's so good. And I doesn't surprise me one bit that
right?
that would be the case, just having the time I've been here. And I think also the strong part of St. Luke over the 35 years and to this very day, and what I really appreciated when I first got here, that is the spiritual hunger
Mm.
and the aliveness here. That folks are not valuing the relationship with others, they value deeply the relationship with our Lord, individually and collectively. And so St. Luke has never been a place for me where we just kind of go through the motions, we do our traditional things, and it's just like there are churches, it just sometimes feels like you're just punching
Yeah.
cards and you're like putting time in. Um, and it's just the nature of that church. And nothing right or wrong with it. I'm going to try and put a value on it. But that's the difference, though. St. Luke is very much alive. And I'm grateful for that. And certainly as a pastor, but I think it bodes well for our future as well as we move forward.
Well, I think when you see a group of people who are hungry for the Lord and hungry for relationships with each other, like that's the epitome of what this podcast is, right? The intersection
Yeah.
where faith and life come together.
Yep.
When you have that in you, like we're gonna have our differences, we're gonna have our issues, we're gonna have our faults. But if we're moving in the same direction and we desire that we want to move in the same direction with people because of those relationships, like we can get through stuff. And I think that's where you get that aliveness that you feel like, hey, we're not perfect, but we can figure stuff out together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So good stuff. Good stuff. 35 years. We'll continue the conversation the next few weeks. I think next week we're not going to be around.
Next week we'll be off because I'll be at family camp and things, and
And then,
so we should be here and there. Like it won't be as regular, but our
yeah,
schedule. But
but definitely look forward to our conversation with Tim Eisinghausen in July. It's going to be really, really outstanding. So thanks, Greg.
yep.
Thanks for listening, everybody.